is Derek Schaefer. My second language is German, and I am a PhD student here at UIC. Most challenging thing about writing in German would be well, first of all, the grammar, idiomatic phrases, scholarly phrases that I'm supposed to use to write a scholarly text or any sort of written paper, rather than just writing like I talk. So the most difficult thing is to make sure that I'm saying it correctly, how a German would say it in an essay, rather than just saying it or directly translating it from English. The best strategy is to start early. That way, the earlier you start, the more you can revise, the more you can research, or just make sure you look up the things that you want to say and make sure you're saying them correctly. Also, if you by starting early, you once again have more time to edit, which is always very crucial, is the editing aspect. Also, when I write, I jot everything down. I take notes first. I take lots of notes, and I'll usually just put that in a Word document first. I'll write out phrases that I want to say and quotes, and separate the phrases from the quotes in a certain way. And that way I have something on paper, so I look like, wow, look what I already have done, and then I can fill in the gaps in between. That's usually how I start. Early, ideally, I would at least start a few weeks beforehand, depending on the length of the assignment. If it's end of the semester term paper, then yeah, ideally a few weeks. That way you can start writing something, let it sit for a day or two, because your thoughts one day may be different the next, or might improve on something, or in between in those days that you're not writing, you might think of something that you hadn't thought of on the one day, and then that way you can add that into your paper, and then when you look at the paper the next day, you're like, what was I thinking? And you can you can change that, you can edit that out. So having that time in there to edit, to let it rest, is better than pulling an all-nighter and just trying to right off the cuff. So yeah, so ideally a few weeks beforehand if it's a long paper. Otherwise, at least a few days if it's just like a 1 or 2 page something. I actually have an outline of what I'm going to talk about. So I'll write an outline first with topics, talking points about the topic and things I want to, my arguments and things, and then I can add in little details underneath each one. So that way, if you've got sort of an outline, an idea, you're not just starting and have no idea where you're going to go. Because if you don't know where you're going to go when you start, you're not going to know where you're going to go throughout the entire paper, and you're just going to ramble. So that way, if you have an idea to go from a sort of roadmap where you're going, then your paper will sound that way. It'll sound more coherent, and that's one of the ways. And then also that ties in with the notes and the quotes and things like that. And I'll put those notes and those quotes under the topic that I think it belongs. And that way, if you start early enough, you have plenty of time to move and to switch things up and edit and change it around. Once again, I think I'll write, and then I'll always print it out, whether it's finished or not. What I have written, I print it, because I'm not one of those people that can look at a computer screen. After a while, my eyes start to bug out, and you start to get lost in the screen. So I print everything out, take a pencil or a pen, and sit and read it. And I just read it like I were somebody else reading this paper, and it doesn't make sense when you read it. And then if I don't like the way I said something, or if I want to change something around, I'll draw arrows, I'll cross things out, I'll write different words, and I'll write that down. And I do that like 3 or 4 times at least. And then I'll sit down with my marked up paper, and then I'll edit it, and I'll type out the things that I edited and what have you. And I do that a couple of times over until I'm satisfied with it. So, and then, you know, once again, look up things that I'm not sure about in dictionaries or, you know, online dictionaries, book dictionaries, grammar books, things as such. Have all those always stacked up next to me so I always have them within reach. I use online dictionaries, probably most frequently, but I always cross-check, you know, with the English and the German to make sure that's what I wanted to say. Those what I use mostly. If it's a grammar issue or if it's an idiomatic expression that I'm not sure of, I'll use something like in German the Duden or things like that. Once in a while I'll ask somebody, I won't tell them to tell me, I won't tell them to tell me how to say it, or I'll ask something, is this right, or, you know, does this sound correct to you if I say it like this? Start early. Start early. Yes, I mean, you don't have to finish early. You don't have to be somebody who's done 3 weeks before the end of the semester. But at least give it a start. Even if you only write if you have a 10-page paper and you only write a page, you know, at least you got to start, so that when you do sit down to really work on it hard, you're like, well, I've already got something, and that's a little motivating too. Writing is also partially mental, and so if you've got that small little victory, then you've already got something started. And just edit and edit and edit and edit and edit until you just can't look at it anymore, because chances are, the more you edit it and the more you keep re-looking at it, the better it'll look to somebody else, because you might know what you want to say, but you're not, the first couple times you write it, you're not expressing it the way other people will understand. So you definitely want to edit and take breaks in between, so that when you look at it 2 days, you are a different person in 2 days. So when you look at it in 2 days, you're like, what was that? What was I thinking? So you know that somebody else will say the same thing. So start early and edit.